Welcome to another episode of UnPerfect, you guys. Becky Harling is hanging out with us today, and you are in for a treat. I have heard her speak live. She's full of wisdom. She's a Bible teacher. She's got deep biblical insights. She has a degree in biblical literature, but also a lifetime of experience with God. She hosts the Connected Mom podcast, which you'll need to tune into. She's written many books and Bible studies. And just in case all these credentials are making you think she's unrelatable, I'm telling you, she is so funny and so wise, and you're going to be encouraged and challenged today by her insights and her stories. So, Becky, welcome to UnPerfect.
Hey, it's great to be with you, Shelley.
Well, I'm so excited that we have this opportunity. And is there anything you want to tell my listeners about you, maybe that I didn't spout off in your bio?
I have 4 grown children and I have 14 grandchildren who are a blast. I do life with my kids and my grandkids, and it's so fun.
That's awesome. Do they all live close to you, or are y'all spread out?
3 of the families live within 10 minutes of me. So that's 10 of the grandchildren. And then I have one family up in Denver, which is only about an hour away, and they have my 4 other grandchildren. So we see all of them, and it's wonderful, So on a Saturday, if I'm not speaking, I'm on the sidelines at soccer games, and this Sunday I'll be at 2 dance recitals, and so it's very fun.
Awesome. Well, listen, we just found out we're going to be grandparents, so
It's the best thing ever.
I'm over the top thrilled. Part of me thinks, was I this excited when I was having my own kids? I don't know. I think I know because I don't have to go through the childbirth and I just get to enjoy the kids.
Yeah.
But we are so excited. Well, listen, the one thing I always ask my guests, because the podcast is called UnPerfect, is what is one unperfect thing in your life right now?
Oh, that is so easy to answer. It's my closet. Life has been so busy, and I woke up this morning thinking, in the middle of the busyness, I really need to get into my closet this weekend and, organize and reshuffle. It just, when life gets busy, it's like, okay, where can I put stuff that I'm going to deal with later? And that place is always my closet. And then I'm like, oh, this is not the way I want it to look or be. So definitely my closet. There are probably other unperfect things in my life as well. I mean, life just isn't perfect, but that's a big one right now.
For sure. And that's the one place you can hide things. It's like no one's coming in my closet. Well, I don't usually share an unperfect thing, but I just feel like I need to. My listeners already know how imperfect my life is. But literally minutes before we got on this recording, I dropped my glasses in the toilet. And I don't even know how you do that. I don't even know how that's possible. But thank goodness I have a second pair. This is the clean pair. So
well, wait, did you flush the other ones down?
No, I just grabbed them and took them out and thought, I don't have time to deal with this right now.
Yes, gotcha. Well, I'm glad they didn't go down the toilet.
Yes.
That would be worse.
Because not only would I not be able to see, but my husband would come home to a very fun project. So
yes,
we try to avoid those. So we are going to jump into a topic that I think is really needed, which is this whole female friendships, especially in those of us who follow Jesus. I mean, they can be tricky, and we know our God loves community and he's a triune God. But there are some pitfalls we want to be on the lookout for. And you've written this book called FriendWise, and I've read it, and it's got some great insights for those of us, even those of us who are older and have been in friendships for a long time. But before we jump into this, I'm just curious, what prompted you to invest some time and energy into this topic and write this book?
As I was traveling and speaking, Shelley, I just kept hearing over and over from women, well, I am lonely and I don't know how to deepen my friendships. I mean, I have people, everybody was quick to tell me, I have friends, I have acquaintances, but they're not that deep. They're not going that well. And I don't know how to get there. And as I was praying, I'm like, you know what? There needs to be a resource that, first of all, is an easy read for people because people are
Yes.
so busy. So this is an easy read. And it's got to have practical, like emotionally healthy tips for friends, but it also has to be biblically based. And so that's what gave me the heart for this book, Friend Wise.
Well, everything you just said is why I loved the book because it is all of those things. So I just picked out a few that I'm going to call pitfalls that we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
And one of the first ones uh, I thought was genius, over explaining our no's. And this was in the chapter that dealt with boundaries. So I got to tell you this. I'm really hoping that you will share the opening story to this chapter when your husband was
Oh,
speaking in the view of the call.
oh, yes, yes, yes.
I heard you tell
That
that line.
is epic.
It's a great
Yes.
story. Yes.
So my
Yeah.
husband and I got married. Well, no, we didn't get married yet. We were dating. We got engaged in Bible college, and he was invited to candidate at a little church in a farming community. And the morning that he was going to candidate, I woke up and I felt ill. And I called him and said, I don't think I should go with you. And he really put pressure on me, you know. And because we weren't married yet, I said yes, you know.
Yeah.
And so we got down to that little country church. He got up to pray the pastoral prayer, and I knew I was going to be sick, Shelley. And the pulpit was down in the front, but the bathrooms were behind the pulpit, right? So you had to go out the front and around. So I quickly scanned the congregation and make sure every head was bowed and every eye was closed. And I got up quickly to make my escape. And there's just no nice way to tell this story. I got as far as the communion table and I just vomited my eyes out all over that communion table. I could not stop. And you know, every eye in the sanctuary popped wide and mouths dropped open as nobody could believe that this young girl was puking all over their beloved communion table. And, you know, my fiance just kept praying because he heard all the commotion and he didn't know what to do. So he just kept praying. And, you know, they voted him in that day 100%. And to this day, we still say it was a pity vote.
That is so funny. I love that story. And you use it in the book to talk about boundaries.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about that. And I especially love the explaining your no's because that is something I constantly feel the need to do.
Yeah. And so boundaries were God's idea, and they are basic property lines. They define where you start and another person starts. They define where you stop and another person starts. And, you know, just like you have property lines around your property, you stay within your property lines. You don't continually, you know, trespass. It's interesting, Shelley, because in the Lord's Prayer, it says, forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And if you think of that, when we're trespassing, we're breaking somebody's boundaries. And oftentimes in friendship, we have a hard time holding on to our own boundaries because we want people to like us. So we may say yes and seethe with resentment underneath. And instead, we have to learn our own limits. You know, Jesus had limits when he came to earth. He was the limitless God, but when he came to earth as a baby, he was contained in a 24-hour day, which meant he had to have boundaries, and he models that for us. But for many of us who are raised to be good, sweet girls, we have a
Yeah.
hard time saying what we need, but we have to learn how to let our yes be yes and our no be no, as Jesus said, you know? And so sometimes that means, you know, somebody may want me to do something and I know I'm not up to it because life is too busy or I've got too much going on. And rather than over explaining, I need to learn the power of the simple, sweet no. No,
Mm.
I can't do that today. And
Yeah.
then, you know, if you need to add something, say, but thank you for thinking of me.
That's so beautiful, and it would save us a lot of time. I know when I go, just recently, my son is a youth pastor, and he texted me, "What are you doing?" And he mentioned some dates, and I knew he was asking me to come be a counselor at student camp which I would love to do. And so my brain is already thinking, how can I knew I couldn't do, I really couldn't do it, but my brain's trying to think, how can I say
Yeah.
yes? And my husband, who knows me so well after 31 years, said, it's okay to say no to your son.
Yeah.
Even if he's asking you to do something in ministry, because
Yeah.
it's, what I'm in school. I have way too many things going on. So I love that the simple no is a powerful thing. It takes a lot of pressure off of us to feel like we've got to go explaining 8 reasons why.
Yeah. And I think there's always a temptation to push past our limits, but God has
Yes,
given us limits for a reason, And I love that you use the illustration of your son who's a youth pastor, because I think for a lot of moms, this is a huge temptation, not just in friendship, but you want your kids to be happy. And so you often say yes to things that maybe aren't the best to say yes to.
yes, so true, so true. Well, my listeners know that one of my biggest hurdles to overcome in life has been comparison. I've talked about this a
Mm.
lot on the podcast, which leads to a lot of discontentment and complaining. And so you talk about this in the book. I'd love for you to talk about how this shows up in our friendships and give us a better way to show up instead.
Yeah, comparing our life to the life of another really destroys your friendship, because then the friendship becomes a competition, And if I'm looking at my friend thinking, well, why did she get that award and I didn't get it? Or why does she have a husband that brings her flowers every day and my husband, doesn't even think of flowers? Or why does she have the beautiful house and I'm stuck in this little bungalow with, 4 kids and a dog and a hot mess around me? Why but that leads to discontentment, and
Mhm.
eventually the jealousy will come out in our friendships and it will destroy our friendships. It's not healthy, And so if I'm going to be a good friend to somebody, I have to lay comparison and competition aside, and I need to be the first to cheer my friend on. So if I find that comparison is rising up in my soul, because sometimes that just happens, right? Immediately stop and ask forgiveness of the Lord. I always say become a fast confessor, so
Mhm.
as soon as you feel envious, confess that to the Lord, but then seek to be the first to cheer on your friend. Friend, I'm so happy for you that you got the beautiful new home. I'm so happy for you that your kids got into Harvard or Yale or wherever. I'm so happy for you that you got that big award or promotion at work, and truly ask the Lord to give you a heart for celebrating your friend.
I love that so much because I think it's exactly what you said. Not being able to cheer someone on, I think comparison puts us in competition with our friend. In,
Yeah.
and God never wanted that. Like, we are in this together. I want to rejoice with you when you are rejoicing, and weep with you when you're weeping. And so yeah, I love how you pointed out, nip it in the bud quick, because it can lead to bitterness. I saw in my own life even bitterness with God, and I didn't realize till later that I was really saying, God, you didn't set my life up the right way. You didn't give me all the things.
And what often happens in friendship then is you begin to back up from the friend that
Yeah.
has what you want. And that's not healthy, and that's not helping you, and it's not helping your friend. So instead of backing up, lean in and
Mm.
celebrate.
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. I think another pitfall, I know it is, and you have a couple of chapters in your book that talk about this in different ways, is not being a good listener. And listen, my hand is up if you're listening. This is me and has been me most of my life as a talker. And I've had to learn to be quiet, to you talk about tuning in and all the things that come with that. So I'd love for you to talk about what this can look like and how we can climb out of this pitfall.
Yeah, listening is so important in friendship. Listen, everybody that knows you wants to feel heard. What
Mm,
often happens is you're meeting with a friend, but you have so much clutter in your own mind that as they're talking, you're thinking about what you're going to say next, or you're thinking about the next assignment, or you're thinking about, picking your kids up from school. What I like to recommend is that you shift your focus completely to your friend, and
mm,
and there are some specific things you need to do. First of all, don't give advice unless it's asked for, because I think as women, we love to fix things for our friends, right? We don't want them to feel pain. So they share something really vulnerable with us or painful with us, and we jump in with the answer. The problem is, if you can solve somebody's problem in a minute, that makes them an idiot. And nobody wants to feel like an idiot. So instead of trying to fix or offer advice, listen to understand. Empathize. When you empathize, you validate somebody's feelings. You say to them basically, your feelings make sense to me. I understand why you feel that way. Even if you don't agree with their opinion on things, you can validate their feelings, and so lean in. Learn to say, tell me more,
mm.
rather than diving in with your own story. Sometimes this can happen in so many silly ways. Somebody comes back from, a Disney vacation and they want to share their experiences with you. And maybe you've just been there. And so as they're sharing, you're thinking, oh, I'm dying to tell them what we did. Instead, say, tell me more. Tell me more.
Mm.
What was that ride like for you? What was the restaurant like for you? Hold your stories until the very end. Learn to quietly listen and draw the other person out. Proverbs says that we're wise when we draw out other people to understand them. And we
Mm.
need to bring that back into our culture, because there's a lot of people that want to be the expert on everything. But here's the thing: nobody really wants to be a friend with somebody who feels like they're the expert on everything, because then you make them feel like they're lacking in some ways. So instead, learn to be the friend who leans in to listen.
I love that so much. You just gave so many truths and practical things. That tell me more is, I need to have that like tattooed on me somewhere to remember to do that. I love what you were talking about, letting them tell their story, because I took a empathic listening course,
Mm.
and so eye-opening. But I remember we got to practice our empathic listening in these triads, and a friend who is a counselor training other counselors, but she just felt like everybody needs to know how to do this, not just counselors.
Yes.
So she was training. She does trainings for this. But anyway, one of the girls in my triad was telling her adoption story and some struggles she was
Hmm.
having. And I'm immediately thinking, well, I've adopted two kids. I want to, and I think, I don't know if Jackie knew I was getting ready to do that or I started into it. And she just said, hey, you don't want to put your story on top of theirs. Like
Yeah.
every story is unique. So don't do that. And so I love how you were saying, instead of let me tell you my story, tell me more. That's just so practical and such an easy way to be present with them and really listen, instead of, like you're saying, we just really want to jump in there and tell our story.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Well, this next one is a real landmine that I think we're all guilty of doing in our friendships, or at least most people I know, and that is creating false narratives about our friends.
Mm.
So how do we do this, and then how can we guard against that voice that is just speaking these crazy lies into us, making up these stories?
You know, we draw assumptions is what we do. So,
Yeah,
maybe a friend cancels on us for lunch and we build a story in our head like, oh, they don't have time for me, or they don't value the friendship as much as I do. And honestly, maybe it has nothing to do with you why they had to cancel lunch.
right.
They might just have too much on their plate. And so we have to continually ask ourselves the simple question: what is the story I'm telling myself?
Hmm.
And Do I know for a fact that that's true? Because most of the time we don't. We can't assume another person's motives, because we're not in their head. So we can't know for sure why somebody does something. So watch it and put like a guard around your thinking. Paul wrote that we are to take every thought captive. And that's very applicable to this whole idea
Mhm.
of drawing assumptions about other people, because you don't know their life, so we can do this in a judgmental sense as well. We can see somebody with their kid in Target and we can think, oh, they're not paying enough attention to their kid because their kid's acting out. Listen, every kid out there acts out, and that mom is doing her best. So unless she becomes violent with her child, assume the best, and I think we need to bring that into our friendships. Assume the best about your friends. Don't make up stories in your head. Well, they don't have time for me. I'm the one that's always reaching out. They said this and that was uncalled for. Don't give that kind of space to
Mm.
those stories in your head. Instead, take every thought captive, assume the best, and seek every opportunity you can to bless your friend.
I love that. I love that. And I hope you guys, listeners, if you're driving, hopefully you've pulled over to write down some of these things Becky's saying. There's so many practical new narratives to put in our mind to
Mhm.
replace some of the old ones. So this is great. The last pitfall I'd love for you to speak on, and by the way, to my listeners, we're only covering a handful of these in this episode. Becky has 31, I think, chapters in this book,
30.
covers
Yeah.
30.
Yeah.
Okay. I knew it was like you can do this in a month. Just
Yes,
read a little bit every
exactly.
night because they're not long chapters. But they cover different aspects of friendship to be aware of, to contemplate, to maybe have some of these practical things that we change. And they're all based on a scripture in Proverbs for each one, which is really neat too. But anyway, you'll have to grab the book to get all 30, to get the full scoop on being friend wise. But the last one I'd love for you, Becky, just to talk through in this episode is that of having unrealistic expectations. Because let me tell you, I wreaked havoc on our marriage in the first decade or so from having
Yeah.
unrealistic expectations, and I know it shows up in friendships too. So speak some life into to us on that topic.
Yeah, unrealistic expectations really do raise havoc. They raise havoc in marriage. They raise havoc when you have adult kids,
Yes.
and they raise havoc on your own children, and they raise havoc on your friendships. People are trying their best. So, first of all, assume the best and then lower your expectations. Raise your own expectations for yourself on being the friend who's the encourager, the affirmer, the one who will be first to pray. But don't put the weight, that's what expectations really are. They're like a weight or a noose that you put around somebody's neck. And people can't live up to that. I remember years ago, I had a friend and I disappointed her, and she basically told me I wasn't a very good friend. And it was all because I didn't have the same amount of time she had to do the things that she wanted to do. What do you think I did? I mean, honestly, truthfully, I didn't press into that friendship anymore because I'm like, well, can't live up to her expectations
Right.
anyway. I may as well back out. And so when we put unrealistic expectations on people, it becomes a heavy burden for them to bear. And everybody in our culture that I know anyway is pretty busy, So be the friend that reaches out with encouragement and affirmation, but that really offers understanding when people have jobs they have to keep up with, when they're trying to keep up with their own families, when they're trying to do their best and they don't have time to be with you every second, or to have lunch every day, or to have lunch every week. Really monitor that. We need to kind of police our own souls. What are my expectations here?
Mhm.
Are they realistic? And if they're not, I need to lay them down. Well, even if they are realistic, every expectation needs to be laid down before Jesus.
So true. And it kind of goes back to what you said about assuming the best about other people too.
Yes.
Because I think, when they're not meeting our own expectations, that can lead us down that road of assuming the worst. And, but I love that, laying it down before the Father.
You
And
know, I wanted to say one more thing about that.
yeah,
I think the deeper your attachment to Jesus, the deeper you go in really feeling, experiencing, knowing his love, the less you're going to put huge expectations on other people, because you're going to begin to understand that Jesus is the only one who can meet all those needs in your life. And the
yeah.
more secure you become in his love, the more you're going to be able to offer others love out of the overflow of a full heart, rather than grasping for something you need, because all your needs are going to be met in Jesus.
Yes, yes, and you have a chapter on that that's so beautiful, of just prioritizing the most important friendship we have with
Yeah.
God, and letting Him. Yeah, like you said, He's the only one that can fill all those needs. That was the thing with my husband. Poor guy. I just was really expecting him to be Jesus to me, and and like you said, the more secure I have become in Christ, the deeper my marriage has become, the deeper my
Yeah.
other friendships has become, because I'm more willing to look at it from, how can I serve you? How can I love you? Instead of, what can I get from you?
Yeah.
How can you serve me? Which, that is can often be the case in our friendships. Well, listen, like I said, so many more wonderful things in the book. I'm excited for people to get a hold of it. But can you share, before we go, where my listeners can find you and how they can connect with you?
Absolutely. So you can visit me at my website, beckyharling.com. I send out a Monday morning devotional that's very short, that comes right out of whatever God is speaking to me.
Mm.
And if you subscribe there, it will land in your inbox on Monday morning. And I don't send out multiple emails. I don't bombard you. I don't give your email address away or anything like that. It's just basic, a short email to encourage your walk with Jesus. And then definitely tune into the Connected Mom
Yeah.
podcast. We have really honest conversations about how to connect more deeply with God, more empathetically with your fellow moms, and more intentionally with your child, no matter how old your child is. And then definitely look up, my books are on, wherever Christian books are sold. And then you can follow me on Instagram at Becky Harling. And you can follow me on Facebook. I mean, I love to have you visit me. And if you're hosting an event, I'd love to come and speak at your event. That's the thing I probably love to do the most.
That's wonderful. And I've heard her speak, and you definitely want her to come speak to your event. But listen, I will put all of those things in the show notes.
Thank
And
you.
I look forward to my listeners becoming your listeners over at the Connected Mom, and partnering with you there. So thanks again, Becky, for being here with us on UnPerfect.
Thank you so much, Shelley. It's been a joy.